Chapter 7, Tom Engaged and Disengaged. The harder Tom tried to keep his mind on his books, the more his ideas wandered. So at last, with a sigh and a yawn, he gave it up. It seemed to him that lunchtime would never come, the day with the sleepiest of sleepy days. Not a breath of the air stirred. Away off in the hot sun, the big hill baked in the heat, and a few birds floated on lazily in the wings high in the sky. No other living thing could be seen but some cows that they were asleep. Tom wanted to be free, or to do something of interest. In his pocket he found the box with a tick. He secretly took the box out and put the tick on his desk. He kept the tick from running off by turning him aside and back with a pin. Next to him sat his good friend Joe Harper, and Joe had trouble trying to study too, so he took out a pin and helped move the tick. The fun grew, but soon Tom said that they were getting in each other's way. He put Joe's slate on the desk and drew a line down the middle of it, from top to bottom. "Now," said Tom, "as long as he's on your side, you can have him. But if he gets over on my side, I'll try to keep him." So they're playing a game with a tick in class. Disgusting. "All right, go ahead, start." The tick moved from side to side, with each boy trying its best to keep the tick or the insect on its side. It was fun until Joe kept the tick on his side most of the time. At last, Tom could stand it no longer. He reached over the line to get the tick. Joe got angry. "Tom, you let him alone." "I only wanted to stir him up a little, Joe." "It isn't fair. You let him alone." "Well, I'm not going to stir him much." "Let him alone, I tell you." "I won't," said Tom. "He's on my side of the line. Look here, Joe Harper, whose tick is it?" "I don't care whose tick it is. He's on my side of the line, and you don't touch him." "Well, I'll just bet I will, though. He's my tick, and I do with him what I please." A big slap came down on Tom's shoulders and another on Joe's. It was the school teacher. He had tiptoed over to the boys while they were busy with a tick. For 2 minutes the slaps continued, while the whole school laughed. When at last school broke up at noon, Tom flew to Becky Thatcher and whispered, "Make believe you're going home, and get to the corner, give the rest of them the slip, and turn around and come back. I'll go the other way and come back too." So Becky went off one way and Tom the other. In a little while they came back to the school and had it all to themselves. They sat together with a slate between them. Tom gave Becky his pencil and held her hand in his, guiding it, so he drew another house. So this guy, he's a ladies' man, or at least he thinks he is. When he was tired of the art, the two talked. Tom was in heaven. He said, "Do you love rats?" "No, I hate them," said Becky. "Well, I do, but I don't mean dead ones. I like the dead ones, to swing around your head with a string." No, I don't care much for rats." "What I do like is chewing gum." "Oh, I should say so. I wish I had some now," said Tom. "Do you? I've got some. I'll let you chew it a while, but you must give it back to me." Gross. Tom agreed, so they chewed, turned about, and swung their legs against the bench in happiness. "Were you ever at a circus?" said Tom. "Yes, and my dad's going to take me again sometime, if I am good. I've been to circuses 3 or 4 times, lots of times. Church isn't anything to a circus. Things are going on in the circus all the time, and I'm going to be a clown when I grow up." "Oh, you are? That's nice. They're all lovely and all spotted up." "Yes, and they get lots of money, Ben Rogers says Becky. "You ever been engaged?" "What's that?" "Why, engaged to be married," said Tom. "No." "Would you like to?" "I guess so. I don't know. What's it like?" "Like? Why, it's like nothing. You only have to tell a boy you won't ever have anybody but him, or ever, and then you kiss, and that's it. Anybody can do it." "What do you kiss for?" said Becky. "Why, that's what you do." "Well, they always do that." "Everybody?" "Why, yes, everybody that's in love with each other do that. Do you remember what I wrote on the slate?" "Yes." "What is it?" "I won't tell you," said Becky. "Shall I tell you?" said Tom. "Yes, but another time," said Becky. "No, now." "No, not now. Tomorrow," said Becky. "Oh, no, now, please, Becky, I'll whisper it ever so easy." Becky hesitated. Tom slipped his arm around her waist and whispered the little word softly. Then he added, "Now you whisper it to me just the same." She didn't want to for a while, but then she said, "Turn your face away so you can't see me, and then I will. But you mustn't ever tell anybody, will you, Tom? You won't, will you?" "No, indeed, I won't now, Becky." He turned his face away. She bent around until her breath stirred his curls and whispered, "I love you." Then she sprang away and ran around and around the desks and benches with Tom after her. At last, she stopped in a corner and hid her face in his hands, and Tom put his arm around her and begged her, "Now, Becky, it's all done, all over but the kiss. Don't be afraid of it. It isn't anything at all. Please, Becky." He pulled her hands. By and by she gave up and let her hands drop. Tom kissed her red lips and said, "Now that's it, Becky. And always and after this, you know you're never to love anybody but me. And you aren't ever to marry anybody but me. Never, ever, ever, and forever. Will you?" "No, I will never love anybody but you, Tom. And I'll never, ever marry anybody but you. And you aren't to marry anybody either but me." "Certainly, of course. That's all part of it. And always coming to school or going home, you're to walk with me when there isn't anybody around. And you choose me and I choose you at parties because that's the way it is when you are engaged." "Oh, it's so nice. I've never heard of it before." "Oh, it's so fun. Why, me and Amy Lawrence—" Becky's eyes grew big and told Tom of his mistake. He stopped, mixed up. "Oh, Tom, then I'm not the first you've ever been engaged to?" She began to cry. Tom said, "Oh, don't cry, Becky. I don't care for her anymore." "Yes, you do, Tom. You know you do." Uh-oh, here we go. The drama is beginning. Tom tried to pull his arm around her, but she pushed him away and turned her face to the wall and went on crying. Tom tried again, soft words in his mouth, but he was pushed away again. And then his pride was up and he went outside. He stood around outside, restless and uneasy. He looked at the door and every now and then, hoping she would come out to find him, but she didn't. Then he began to feel bad and feared that he was in the wrong. He went back in. She was still standing in the corner, sobbing with her face to the wall. Tom stood a moment, and now knowing exactly what to do. Then he said, "Becky, I don't care for anybody but you." There was no reply, only sobs. "Becky, please, Becky, won't you say something?" More sobs. Tom took out the most prized possession, a brass doorknob, and held it so that she could see it, and said, "Please, Becky, won't you take it?" She struck it to the floor. Then Tom marched out of the schoolhouse and over the hills and far away to never return to school no more that day. Becky presently began to suspect. She ran to the door. Tom was not in sight. She flew around the playground. He wasn't there. She called, "Tom, come back, Tom!" She listened. There was no answer, only silence and loneliness. She sat down to cry again and blamed herself. By this time, the pupils began to gather back again, and she had to hide her grief and still her broken heart. There was no one among the strangers for the rest of the day, the long dreary afternoon, to tell her troubles to. Oh, we have a life lesson here, folks.